Hello and welcome to a massive undertaking for Battle of the Ports, where we take a look at Lemmings. This video does feature many versions of Lemmings, but there are one or two missing. But hopefully there's enough unique versions of Lemmings here to keep everybody happy. So let's enjoy the show. Lemmings was one, if not the biggest game in Europe during the early 90s. It started life on the Amiga in 1991 after Mike Daly had created some simple animation on Deluxe Paints using his Amiga 500. The main game was programmed by Russell Kay, Mike Daly and David Jones of DMA Design, who went on to become Rockstar Games. Yep, the same Rockstar behind Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption and many other great games. The concept of Lemmings is so simple. You basically have to get your little green haired guys from one part of an area to another. To successfully complete a level, the player must assign specific skills to certain lemmings. Which skills and how many uses of each are available to the player vary from level to level, and the player must assign the skills carefully to successfully guide the lemmings. There are 8 skills that can be assigned. Climbers climb vertically, though fall down if they hit an overhang. Floaters use a parachute to fall safely from heights. Bombers explode after the 5-second timer, destroying themselves and any destructible landscape in close proximity, though not damaging the other lemmings or traps. Blockers stand still and prevent other lemmings from passing. Lemmings that hit a blocker simply reverse direction. Builders build a variety of 12 steps. Bashers and miners and diggers dig horizontally, diagonally downwards or directly downwards respectively. It must also be mentioned that the original Amiga release and many of the ports have a 2-player option as well. The concept of Lemmings is so simple yet very addicting. The simple mouse controls are also easy to get to grips with. In fact, the game was so easy to enjoy and addictive that it got ported to practically everything, including obscure systems such as the British Home Micro, the Sam Coupe. Next up we have the Atari ST release. For all intents and purposes, this is basically the same as the Amiga version, but with less colour and far worse sound. We don't even get the classic Lemmings speech. Besides that, it's a good port. Of course, Lemmings got a PC port which can be played in a variety of styles from EGA to VGA or even Tandy 16 color mode. Sound options were also varied. I'm playing this port with keyboard controls. I found it annoying that the cursor keys are not used for directions, but rather the Q, A, O and P are. But then again, I guess PC gamers would be happy with this. The Acorn Archimedes is next, and what a machine it was. It should have taken over the Western home micro scene, but sadly it was too expensive. I like to think of it as the Sharp X68000 of the UK. As you can see, it also got a port of Lemmings, which runs at a higher resolution than the Amiga and ST versions. Sound wise, it's very close to the Amiga. Some may think it's better or clearer sounding, but whichever way you look at it, the Archimedes port of Lemmings is very good, if not better than the original. It's just a shame that the nice intro is missing. Okay, let's drop down to the lowest possible port, the ZX Spectrum version. This version is rather slow and the low resolution makes it tricky to be accurate, but it still plays okay once you become accustomed to the controls. Due to a lack of mouse, the player controls the target icon with the joystick or the cursor keys. The movement is a little sluggish, but it works. To select the type of lemming action is done via the number keys. Killing all the lemmings is the tab key, while the spacebar pauses. It's a little tricky at first, but you soon get used to it. Sadly, there is no speech, but the music is rather good. Next up is the Commodore 64 version, which is pretty good. The game tries to look like its big brother 16-bit counterparts and does a good job. The viewing area is a lot smaller, mind you, which can make some later stages tricky as you can't see all you need to without scrolling. The controls are also like those found on the ZX Spectrum, but here they are a lot smoother to use. The audio is also smoother in quality, making for an all-round pleasant experience. Another good port of Lemmings, this time on the Amstrad CPC. Just like the ZX Spectrum version, this one has clunky controls, but unlike the ZX Spectrum, this looks nice, has pretty good audio and animation, and slightly more polish. I don't think CPC owners would have been upset with this port. This is Lemmings GS for the Apple II GS. Made by Brutal Deluxe Software and published by Shareware Solutions 2, this is probably the worst port so far. While it looks good and sounds nice, it is so slow. I've asked a few people if it runs super slow on a real Apple II GS, and they said it does on a stock machine. So yeah, I don't think this would be one anyone could enjoy. For the first time ever on Battle of the Ports, we are featuring a game on the SAM Coupe, a British Z820 based home computer released in 1989 by Miles Gordon Technology. The system was a flop though, due to the 16-bit machines being more popular by 1989, and a lack of software being released for the format. It is a shame because the SAM Coupe was pretty good compared to other 8-bit micros. Lemmings did get a release on the system, and as we can see, it's vastly superior to the Commodore 64, Amstrad CPC, and of course the ZX Spectrum. You could say it looks almost 16-bit like. Oh, and it plays really well. Okay, let's move on to some Japanese systems, starting with the NEC PC 9801. This port was handled in Japan and is based upon the Amiga original. It is very close to the original but is missing some graphical effects, such as the lava on stage 6, and the speech seems to be a farty sound sample that's messed up. Thankfully the music and the way the game plays is good. Running at a higher resolution than the PC 9801 is the Sharp X68000 port, also by the same developer behind the PC 9801 version. Again, this is based upon the Amiga original and is almost the same, but due to the way the audio has been sampled, there are some pops and clicks here and there that are not present in the original. It may be just me, but the graphics seem to be touched up a little over the Amiga as well. Sound issues aside, this is another great port of Lemmings. Surprisingly, this FM Towns port was developed by a different software house than the X68000 and the PC 9801, but it is more in line with the PC 9801 as it seems to be the same port. Yep, that also includes the missing lava on stage 6. This does fare much better in the sound department though, with full speech and nice fade outs between stages. Loading is really fast too, since it's a CD based game. Sticking with the Japanese machines, but on to the consoles. Here we go with the Super Famicom port from Sunsoft. I do like the new introduction and the fresh updated Lemmings icons, but the game is a mixed bag. With a nice fresh lick of paint makes, by the time this was released, an aging game look modern. But it doesn't help that the play area is limited due to the low resolution of the Super Famicom. This means you need to scroll left and right just to see what's normally visible on most other ports. The audio is also hit or miss. Most of the songs are original, but the compositions can be lacking on some of the tracks. Still, at least the controls work well with the joypad. Apparently Sunsoft are also responsible for this Mega Drive port, but it kind of sucks because it follows the original game rather than the updated look the Super Famicom got, and this was released a year later. What I don't get is why the opening is so dark, but it has the nice Let's Go speech sample, yet in game the graphics are fine, but all the speech samples are awful or replaced with a sound. The playability is okay, but I did notice some stages had been redesigned to make them shorter. How odd. PC Engine CD time with a port by Kuso Kagaku Corp. Probably the most popular port would be Psycho Strikers 1945-2 on the Saturn and PlayStation. But how was their port of Lemmings? Well, it's okay, and it's one of a dozen PC Engine games that actually use the PC Engine mouse. The problem is that this seems a little sloppy in places. The Digger Lemming, for example, can be really slow. Or how about the Lemmings don't actually enter the exit but kinda clip the side of it. These are nitpicking points though. On the whole, it plays well enough and the arranged soundtrack is a nice touch. Coming to us from Probe Software, this Master System port is really well done. It even has better speech than the Mega Drive version. Some stages have been cut back in terms of animation, and there isn't as many Lemmings on screen, but overall it plays, looks and sounds really well. There's nothing to complain about really. The Game Gear port is also by Probe Software, and is basically just the Master System game with a few tweaks to make it work on the Game Gear. Since the Game Gear has a much lower resolution screen, the stages need to be scrolled quite a bit, so you can see what's coming up. The Lemmings select menu is also hidden, until you move the cursor to the bottom of the screen. At first this was rather frustrating, but I soon become accustomed to it. After seeing how well Lemmings turns out on the Game Gear, I had high hopes for the Game Boy version by Ocean. But I should have known better, cause this is sadly quite lacking. The gameplay mechanics are a little fiddly, as you need to hold down the A button to bring up the Lemmings select menu, and you need to keep the button pressed while selecting your Lemming, otherwise the menu disappears. Then there is the game. This version has less Lemmings on the screen than the Game Gear version, and it is a lot slower. I can't seem to be able to speed up or slow down the rate at which Lemmings enter the stage. If it is possible, it sure isn't obvious. Also, the nuke option is very laggy, taking at least 2 or 3 seconds to activate, and at times it doesn't cover all the Lemmings. Maybe pass on this one. Even a Game Boy Color release developed by J-Wing. This port gets the Lemmings select portion of the game right, but fails on everything else. Again, there is a lack of Lemmings, you can't speed up or slow down the rate at which they arrive on screen, and the music sucks. Also, like the original Game Boy version, this is one of only 2 ports where you need to scroll the screen vertically as well as horizontally. There is only one thing people care about when it comes to the Famicom port, and that is it better than the Master System? And the answer to that is no. You see, this is developed by Ocean, and in typical Ocean style, it is a rather sloppy effort. No sound effects during gameplay with music, all other ports have that. Some stages have been altered to give you different Lemming choices. The graphics are rather garish at times, and the audio is too slow. Funny thing, if you play this in NTSC mode, the music is fine, but the game is too fast. Typical Ocean quality right there. Lynx owners were lucky because they received the port by the original developers, DMA Design. But is it the best portable version? Well, it does have some nice use of scaling on the title screen and the introduction to stages, and it is much easier now because every time you pull up the Lemmings select menu, the game pauses, because you can't see the actual screen. So some people may not like this port due to it changing the way the original played. Some of the stages have been given a change too, so that they feel more at home on the Lynx's screen, and we also have some different tunes at times. But is it better than the Game Gear port? I'd probably say not, but it is a good version of Lemmings. There is a CDI version of Lemmings, but obviously living in Japan means I don't own a CDI, and I certainly don't want to import one. Sadly, it seems the game either can't be emulated or all images on the net are buggered. Well, we may not have seen the Philips CDI version in action, but we can see the 3DO version, which starts off with this rather drab original introduction. But that's where the drabness ends, because this is one great version of Lemmings. The controls are very responsive with a nice fluid feel to them. The audio has also been arranged, which sounds far better than the PC Engine version in my opinion. I also like how we can clearly see the Lemmings on the mini map. This is great as we no longer need to scroll to see them. So could this be the best version of the original Lemmings? It may just be, or then again, maybe the Acorn Archimedes is, with its high resolution looks and full speech, which the 3DO version is lacking when it comes to the "oh no" line. And let's take a look at all those versions of Lemmings running side by side.